Because of the following special broadcast, The Lucy Show and The Andy Griffith Show will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntrist here. Always happy to welcome John McCrea back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, man.
Hey there, John. Good to be here. Thank you. I was just watching the Alex Ross intro and wishing that I, too, had a theme tune that played behind me every time I walked into a room like Alex does. Except, of course, that mine would probably be more like the Benny Hill show theme tune or something. So it'd be like, as I come scampering into the room, knocking the stuff over. But yeah, that would, yes, impressive stuff.
Yakety sex. Well, John, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, yakety sex, exactly.
I know you're having fun, but yeah, man. No, we've enjoyed your stuff over the years. You know, you were tweeting Judge Dredd Mars Attack stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize, my God, it's been 10 years.
My God.
Series.
Really? Has it been 10 years?
I know, sorry, John. I know.
Yeah. Oh, my God. And that
could curse us, John. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem that long ago. So stuff like Troubled Souls and, working for Fleetway way back is just another millennia, quite literally.
Was that just acknowledging, had someone posted stuff about this? I saw on your Twitter feed you were throwing up images.
Yes, somebody just mentioned it on Twitter, and I thought, oh yeah, that was quite good. I drew that, didn't I? So I chucked up some images from it because, anything to keep the old feed sort of grinding along there. I'm not as busy as some people, but I try to keep people interested occasionally. And I'm not terribly talky about my own life. When I'm on Twitter, it's more just, here's what I drew, this is my work, and fuck Boris Johnson.
Yes, we were comparing Boris Johnson and Donald Trump as both are facing their various troubles recently.
Yes, what a boo-hoo team.
Here's hoping for people that might watch or listen that this is a distraction. I started doing video, John, during COVID to kind of get our minds off of it, because, I mean, my God, you couldn't tear yourself away wall to wall of this depressing situation we were all in. And I'm like, well, let's talk comics. And we're all stuck inside. So let's get together and share stories and stuff. So that was my intent. And certainly today, just bad timing. I mean, we had this planned prior to Trump's arraignment happening today. But
sure.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening with Boris. I had him not to.
He's out. He's no longer an MP, so that's good. But and I guess there's the whole problem of his honours list nonsense going on, where everybody who ever sort of spoke nicely about him, including his housekeeper or what have you, is going to be knighted or whatever, and it's just ridiculous. So. It's insane. It's insane. So he's going to go kicking and screaming into the night, just like Donald. So I guess he learned from the worst, didn't he? Really, as far as I can tell.
Okay, well, a couple of here. I had forgotten this variant that you did for the series where there's Stan.
Yeah.
Stan Lee, everybody, for those who are listening and not watching.
Yeah, that was just odd. It's funny when you're drawing things for comics that you never thought you would draw, and why would you? So and these things get thrown up occasionally. These really odd things to draw, but have fun. It was good fun to do. I love Stan as much as the next person. For all his foibles and faults, his witty banter is what kept me reading comics, I guess. So yeah. So it was lovely to do it. Apparently somebody from Stan's office approached IDW about buying or having the picture. And I gave them a price, and they came back to me and said, "Oh no, they just wanted you to give it to." And I was like, I said, he's got more money than me. I mean, I think this is honest to truth that he probably has more money than me. So actually, he should give me some of that money for this cover. But anyway. But Stan probably knew nothing about the deal. Absolutely nothing. He was not a sausage. It was just some guy who thought that he would use a bit of leverage to, get a bit of free art. And I'm sure it's worked over the years for them. But,
yeah, John, I'm shocked when people, like yourself, give me free art. I mean, I've got great. I've paid for my various commissions over time, but it's always like, what a nice thing and what a nice gesture. But yeah, man, no, John, you're a A-lister, and like you said,
no, I'm not. No, John, I'll stop you there. I'm definitely not an A-lister. I'm probably a sort of mid to slightly higher B-list. I would say me. No, definitely not. I'm not unlike Jim Lee and Alex Ross are A-list guys. I'm somewhere on the B-list. You got to know your where you are in the world. Man, got to know his limitations. To quote a famous fella, but. Yeah, it's not so bad being sort of mid B list. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my lot.
I saw you posted your most recent Dredd cover that you got in Pops or whatever recently,
right?
And you made the allusion too that you drew the cover and Garth had a story in there, so that was kind of nice. You guys were working together again. Beyond that cover, what are you currently working on?
I don't think it's a terrible secret for me to say that I'm doing a Carnage story at the moment for Marvel, which is fun. I mean, I did a Carnage story for them last year, was it? I don't know, with Al Ewing again for the Blood, Red and Blue or whatever. I've forgotten what it's called. Black, White and Red, probably. Or Black, White and Blood for Carnage book. And that was great fun to do. Al's always great fun to work with. And of course, he wrote the Mars Attacks book, which you had up, the Mars Attacks Dredd book. So I like working with Al when I can, because he's an awesome writer. This is a 30-pager, and it's being, I don't know if I'm really allowed to say who it's been written by, but I guess, it's I could say it's Hammer time, to quote MC Hammer, and you might get a clue in that as to who's writing it, and it's good fun. I'm penciling and inking it. Mike Spicer's coloring it again as always. Yeah, so yeah, it's a blast actually. I haven't enjoyed drawing for as much as I'm drawing as I am with I'm drawing this one. It's just a huge, crazy, big story. And there's loads of stuff I like drawing. Mad, crazy trees, skeleton guys, Dormammu shows up. So I've never drawn him before. Wow. He just pops in for a couple. So it's great fun. I'm having a whale of a time, and it's nice because the pages are flowing easily for me, and it's I've struggled with drawing since getting COVID.
Really, John?
Oh yeah. I mean, I got long COVID. I don't know if you know, but I got long COVID after I got COVID back in 2 years ago. This August, I got COVID, and it turned into long COVID, and I was basically laid up in bed for 6 months, and I couldn't draw. I was sleeping for 19 hours a day for 6 months, and then after that. Actually, that Dredd cover that you were talking about earlier was the first thing I tried to draw, because I had the fuzzy brain and all that sort of business.
Sure.
And so I would try to put the pencil to the paper, and I would just be like, I can't get this to work. I had to give away all my work that I was doing at the time. I was doing Soul Plumber for DC. And if you look at Soul Plumber, after issue 1, my mate Paul Holden takes over, really ostensibly drawing the book. After that, I pop up here and there to ink an occasional page. But yeah, I did. Paul saved my bacon on that one and came in at the last minute. And he draws in quite a similar style to me, so it was a good fit. And that saved the book and kept it rolling. Thank goodness. So after that, I spent my time recovering, and then I sort of was noodling, trying to learn how to draw again. I did that Dredd picture, and yeah, this is the one you're talking about here.
Zooming in.
This picture here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it came out rather nicely. I basically drew it and then thought. I'm posting on social media because I was sort of going, I'm not even sure if this is a good drawing. I don't know. People responded really well to it. And then I finished it off. And then I thought, I'll just send it to 2000 and see if they want it as a cover, since everybody seems to like it. And they bought it. But it took them a year to use it. Okay. And it was quite nice that it was used when Garth was in the book as well back in 2000 as well. So it felt like synchronicitous or whatever, if that's a word. I'm not sure.
It's certainly a form of the word synchronicity. Absolutely.
I guess so.
Synchronicity, absolutely.
Yeah.
So is it a combination, John, of physical and mental in terms of?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, before I got COVID, I was a pretty fit and healthy person. I would cycle, probably 30 or 40 kilometers a week. And, I was doing, I'm just stating for I was doing, weights and exercise and press ups and things like that every day. I was fit and healthy. And then with COVID, all that's gone really. And it's only in the last couple of months, really, nearly 2 years now. But it's only in the last couple of months where I now can actually sort of run a certain distance without wanting to collapse and die. So yeah, it's been pretty affecting physically. And the fuzzy brain was a real problem for quite a while. But that faded sooner, and I've been able to get back to work. So I did that Dredd thing, and then I've done some other stuff after that. I can't really quite recall what off the top of my head. I mean, I've had some stuff published and out there recently. I can't quite think what. Anyway, somebody who knows better will probably know. But yeah, and I've been working on Dead Eyes as well, and in the background. But that in itself is a very slow and laborious thing, because not because of COVID, but because of a whole lot of other issues that I'm not really allowed to talk about. So, so I've been noodling away at Dead Eyes and then taking work on that to pay the bills.
Sure.
And so the Carnage job is the most recent of that. And but I'm, like I said, having a great time with it. I mean, I can show you a wee bit of process if you'd like to see.
Of course.
One of the things I did have to do was stop drawing the way I was drawing when I was first working on Dead Eyes. And I was using this sort of brushy sort of effect, and I had to scrap all that because I just couldn't I still can't physically concentrate hard enough to draw like that anymore. So I've had to turn to pens exclusively, and I developed this sort of scribbly style, which I now use just entirely. So yeah, with Carnage, I've got I pencil it out on a bit of photocopy paper, page. I just sort of quickly pencil it. In fact, that's on the back of another page. And then I photocopy it. I scan it in and print it out. Sorry. I tidy it up on the computer with my pencils, tidy them up, and then sort of ink them up by Lightbox onto artboard.
Yeah.
I'm using DC artboard for a Marvel book, but it's what I had. Marvel are sending me some artboard as we speak, but so I'll switch at some point, so that I'm not being completely.
Who's your Carnage editor?
It's Danny Kazim, who I worked with Danny on, I think, Star Wars books. I did a bunch of Star Wars covers at some point in my career that I can't really recall. COVID has just made me completely. I mean, I can remember all the stuff like probably a couple of years before COVID and back. But up to, the couple of years before COVID happens, all of COVID and now is just a jumble. It's just a big old mess, and I can't remember what came here or where or what, So I'm sure I did those Star Wars jobs. No, I'm not sure when I did them at all. I have no clue. I think it might be pre-COVID, but I'm not 100% sure.
I understand. It's
all I feel old.
John, honestly, we were talking about it before we started broadcasting. No, COVID really did a number on all of us, whether forgive me, because good Lord, you certainly got it both ways, short COVID and long COVID. I never got the virus, but as far as remembering when things happen, math is a challenge. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm just a muddle now all the time. So yeah.
You mentioned Star Wars. I wonder, and again, because you've done stuff like the Dredd stuff for IDW. IDW has Star Trek. Are you a Star Trek guy at all?
No. Okay. I watched the original Star Trek, back in the day when I was a kid, and it was on TV, and I enjoyed it. And then when the films came out, I went to see them at the cinema. But I'm not a Trekkie. I don't own any Trek memorabilia.
Okay.
I wouldn't be excited by drawing Star Trek. And honestly, I hate drawing likenesses. I despise it beyond, I'm rotten at it. I'm terrible at drawing likenesses. So it's not something that comes easy to me at all. So that sort of thing. That's why when I draw Star Wars, I just want to draw the robots and the guys with face masks and things like that, because A, they look cooler, and B, I don't have to struggle. I mean, I'm not like Adam Hughes or that guy, what's his name, who used to do Gen 13.
J. Scott Campbell, maybe?
J. Scott Campbell. I mean, he's amazingly good at likenesses and all that, but he makes them. And Dan Panosian, that guy, he's so good at them as well. And Panosian and J. Scott Campbell both look like they should be drawing for Mad Magazine or what have you, back in the day. They've got that really, especially Dan, he's got this really loose, easy style. It looks a bit, and he can do Mort Drucker. He just draws, and it looks a bit like Mort Drucker drew it. And you're just like, so you can do everything, can you? Plus you're big and strong and handsome. I fucking hate you. So yeah, he's terrific.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, John. I hear you, man.
Yeah, I know.
For his own good. You're
yeah, I mean, there's a guy who's an A-list guy, you know. That's...
I talked to Dan a few months ago. Well, again, John, I hear what you're saying. You know, it's surprising though that you say that you have difficulty with likenesses because, and forgive me, John, you know, Wikipedia can be incredibly wrong, but they were talking about how when you broke in, you did a lot of TV tie-ins, and I wonder which ones you did.
Did I? Oh, no, I did Action Force, which is G.I. Joe. I did a couple of those, so no likenesses required.
Okay, yeah,
you know, and especially since I did Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, so both masked.
Yeah.
so that's good. And the other thing I did was Centurions Par Extreme. You know, if you remember that stupid cartoon show.
Don't.
No. Anyway, I think Marvel actually did a licensed book in the States, but I was working for I think it was pretty much my first paying gig was Centurions. And it was London Editions. A guy called Mike Butcher saw my work and took a punt on me. I was drawing a bit like, I kind of drew like Barry Windsor Smith back then, or at least, let me just step back a bit. I was trying to draw a bit like Barry Windsor Smith back then, and failing obviously. But yeah, those were my TV tie-ins, and none of them required any likenesses at all. So yeah, no, I'm not a likeness guy. Definitely not.
Paul Stevens chimes in and says, "Just got here. Great to see you. Loved your art and some great sketches at London Super Comic-Con."
Oh, thank you, Paul. Cheers, man. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. That's great, man. John, you know, honestly, it's your style that makes stuff so distinct. And we go back to Hitman and your version of Superman, and even in the first issue, your version of Batman.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
That's great, man. I mean, again, it's distinct. Did you ever do Beyond when Hitman when Batman was in Hitman and stuff? Did you ever do any of those Legends of the Dark Knight kind of arcs or an arc?
Yeah, I did a Legends with Warren Ellis. Back in the day, we did a two-parter called Infected. Sorry, just straining the old grey matter. Yeah, and it was Archie Goodwin was my editor on that. God bless him. I love Archie. Of course, who doesn't? And he was the guy who brought me to DC. Archie was. I did a book with the late James Hudnall, called Streets, which was a 3-issue prestige format thing. A couple of other guys did the first 2, and I did the third one. And it was Archie who was the editor on that, and he brought me in. I think, and then after that, he got me the Legends gig, and I think from there, was I already doing the Demon at that time? Then
of course, yes.
I'm not sure. I think I went from Streets onto the Demon. And then somewhere in the Demon, I drew while I was doing the Demon, I drew the 2-part Legends of the Dark Knight. I think that's the sort of time frame. But yeah, I mean, you threw up that Superman picture there. I mean, Superman's a character that I have always struggled with. Oh, absolutely. Drawing Superman is like my kryptonite. It really is. I find he's so clean cut and so good and decent and nice that I find it very difficult to have anything to hang my style on. And I, as much as everybody loved Hitman, that issue of Hitman that Superman's in, of the I Sing, I look at my drawings of Superman and kind of cringe a fair bit. And when that JLA Hitman book was given to me, that came out years after Hitman finished. And in fact, at the time, I was really struggling to find work. I had no work. There's the comics broke me hashtag going on at the moment. Well, I mean, that was my comics broke me, one of my comics broke me moments where basically I wound up just having no work. Nobody wanted to hire me. And I was basically begging for work at DC and Marvel and not getting anything. And it went on. I was saved by Marie Javins. Oddly, wow. She started working for a comic company in the Middle East called Tashkil, and they published a comic called The 99. This was around probably 2005, I'd imagine. And because Hitman ended about 2001, and I did some bits and pieces, like I did Superboy, and I did The Monarchy, and I did Jenny Sparks.
Sure.
After Hitman. And the Hulk Smash book with Garth and Spider-Man Tangled Web. I did all those, but as they went on, just things kept happening that sort of fucked up all the deadlines and fucked up all the scheduling. And I kind of got blamed for it because the artist usually does get the blame. And some of it was my fault, but a lot of it wasn't. Just bad scheduling. And so I ended up with no work and my first kid was born around that time. And there I was with no work and nothing going on. And then Marie came along with The 99 and saved my bacon, basically. And it was an ongoing book, and they paid me sort of same rates as Marvel and DC. Nobody saw it over here because it was mainly for the Middle Eastern market. And So I did that for 15 issues or so. And then I think I was offered that JLA Hitman book. And I was so desperate by that point to kind of impress and be, to make it my mark. And this is me back, that Pete Tomasi was my editor on the book. And I was sending pages in, and Pete was just going, John, these are terrible. These are just, they were terrible. And I had to scrap all these pages that I was doing. And basically I took about 6 months off. Luckily there was no deadline on the book. And I took 6 months off and just started redrawing everything and learning again, sort of looking at people I liked and people who drew superheroes well and just trying to copy them. And I think that Superman that you showed, there's lots of bits of Neil Adams and even sort of a bit of and even a bit of Bill Sienkiewicz, and just these are the people I was looking at, Neil Adams, but more sort of just solid superhero artists, like really solid superhero artists, and I was just trying to be those people, and it sort of worked. I creaked back into the industry after that, but it was a long, hard slog of me just reinventing myself. And I think that the style I developed for that book, with that brushy style, was the thing that went on to sort of, I guess, save me a wee bit and to get me back into the industry. And I guess it culminated with me doing Dead Eyes, and that. But it's now such a precise style. It's so intricate and so precise, and every line has to be thought about, and I just cannot think like that anymore, and I can't do it. And if I try to, I get heart palpitations and exhausted, and so I just have to draw differently now. So
interesting. So, are there examples of this new style out now? Will Carnage reflect this new style?
Yeah. That Dredd cover is that sort of style as well, and I think the previous Carnage job even was that. I think I was sort of developing it before COVID in a kind of just, wouldn't this be interesting? Kind of like I was just looking at people who were much looser, like we were talking about Dan Panosian or whoever, guys like that. They all use brush, and I can't use brush now because it's just again too much focus required. Because I used to ink with a brush. Hitman, before Gary Leach started, Hitman was inked with a brush. Before Gary took over. But since I started inking my own stuff again, I scrapped the brush and went to brush pens. But now
well, thankfully, I'm sorry, you're frozen. I'll continue the conversation at least and say, thankfully, there are the tools there that allow you to, adapt your style and give you the proper things to make things work. Oh, poor John is frozen. He's in the phantom zone, as I like to say, when these things happen. John, if you can hear me, hopefully you will know, and take yourself out of the...
going to keep talking. Yeah, did we throw it out there for a second?
You did for a good 20 seconds or so. I covered, but
good man.
All right, well, no.
I kept talking, but just in case.
What happened? Well, I'll say, and for your purposes, because you didn't hear me, at least now there are tools for you to continue, and even if you can't use the brush anymore, go into the hard pens and everything.
Sure,
you can precise those ways, and hey, man, good.
Yeah. No. It's again, it's a sort of adapt or survive.
Absolutely, man. Oh, and again, he's back in the phantom zone. Hopefully it'll knock out. I'm gonna check my
on again.
There we go. Now we're back.
Over the years, my style has changed. It's always changing because I don't like to stand still. But this one was born of necessity more than just boredom, I guess, maybe, or wanting to change because I see another pretty way of doing something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scribbly sort of energetic, like almost like Jim Food type of, I mean, I don't want to go, I don't think I can ever go as extreme as Jim, because his stuff is bonkers. It's fantastic, but bonkers. But I don't think I can go quite as extreme as him. Like, there's always a bit of me wanting to draw things slightly realistically, and I think if you're working for Marvel or DC, they, to a degree, might expect that of you. It's a tightrope where you want to be yourself, but you're worrying about how editors might respond. And my wife is always saying to me, "Now, don't go too mad, because the editors won't like it," and she's right to a degree. But at the same time, I want to stamp my own personality onto my art, and and I think my own art, my art has got a personality to it. But I like to push things when I can. So
I'm with you. Some nice comments here from people. Mike Jones says, first of all, he has those Centurion comics, so that's hilarious.
Really? Good Lord, Mike. Oh, the Marvel ones, probably, not the ones drawn by me.
Well, I don't know. I think Mike might be a Brit.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, that's a pretty standard name. Okay, he's got those Centurion comics, yeah. Yeah, Will Simpson used to draw for the Centurions too. Okay. He was, and he's a Northern Ireland guy just like me. And I used to hang around with Will, and before I broke into comics, and so maybe it was Will who introduced me to Mike Butcher. It probably was, and got me that Centurion gig. So cheers, Will.
All right, no disrespect meant for referring to you as a Brit rather than a Northern Ireland, there, Johnny.
No.
Yeah. So I do want to.
No, I wasn't. Don't.
No, it's cool, and I honestly, I'll try to remember that for future reference. Cycle Cleveland says, just chiming in for a second to say, Mythic is fucking boss. Giant baby wanting a dinosaur. Hell yeah. Tell me about Mythic.
Oh, Mythic is an image book that Phil Hester and I did at some point. And it's a great book. In fact, I was just looking at it the other day because my daughter, who reads a lot of manga and various other comics, but mostly leans towards manga, as so many do these days. But she had heard me talking about Mythic and was intrigued by it, so I dug out a copy of it for her, and I had a flick through it just the other day, and got quite engrossed in reading it again. But it's just a big, crazy. I say those words a lot, don't I? It's about mythical creatures that are still alive today, mythical beings that are still alive today, and a team of sort of mythical troubleshooters who are kind of there to make sure everything works properly. I suppose it's a bit like The Boys, but with mythical stuff instead, and maybe not quite so much, well, everything that's in The Boys. Not quite so much. I mean, there is frontal nudity in Mythic, but not quite as extremely as in The Boys. But yeah,
Herogasm. I appreciate that. Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Good times.
That's great. I love that Garth pulled you in and had you do stuff like Herogasm and that. And
well,
your Section 8 also crazy stuff.
Well, the Section 8 and Mythic I drew at the same time, and that was the reason why Mythic got cancelled, because I had started drawing Mythic, and then DC came to me and said, we want to do a Section 8 miniseries. And after checking the calendar to make sure it wasn't April the 1st, I agreed, because I love those characters so much. And I begged DC to delay the release date on Section 8. And they couldn't be moved because it was all part of the New 52, if you believe it, or I think, or something. Was it the New 52? I can't remember.
It could have been. I mean, that sounds right.
Or another relaunch that I can't really remember.
There was that after New 52. There was DC and You, which had a lot of interesting.
Oh, maybe that was it.
I think it might have been part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it was. Anyway, so I did the two of them simultaneously, but I knew everything around about issue 4 of both books. Everything was going to explode, and unfortunately, Mythic took the brunt of it, and was late shipping on a bunch of issues, and our sales just dropped like a stone because of the late shipping. It was selling pretty well beforehand, and then by the end of it, it was doing very poorly. Image released the trade just to see, and if it had sold, I think, what was it, the break even? They said if we sell 3,000 copies of the trade, you can do the next arc. And we sold like 2,987 or something like that. I mean, we were so close, and it was just like, nah, the book's not selling well enough to warrant going any further.
Would you and Phil potentially, after a couple of years, maybe put it back out to see?
Well, that's not a bad idea, I suppose. It would have to be a number of years, because I need to get Deadeyes back on track. Sure. I mean, that is my focus at the moment. I mean, Deadeyes has been stymied by so many different things that it's just hard to believe. It's like a comedy of errors, really, and nothing, again, completely out of Jerry and my hands. But and I'm so determined that it's going to be the little book that succeeded against all odds. I'm so determined for it to work that I'm just sticking with it. I mean, of course I have to do occasional Marvel gigs to keep the wolf from the door, but yeah, Deadeyes is my focus. I get this Carnage job done, and then it's straight back onto Deadeyes again. So yeah, I mean, and I would like to get at least, we've done one book. I'd like to get at least another 2 or 3 books of Deadeyes out there. Have a good 4 volumes sitting there. I mean, one of the people I admire the most in the industry is Sean Phillips, and the way Sean works now with Brubaker is just brilliant. He's got it so so well. It's just perfect, isn't it? He just releases a couple of books a year. He's like a European artist. Yeah. He's like a European artist. He got it so well figured out. So all he has to do is 2 books a year, and spend his time doing those, and he's set. And I'm so admirous of that. It's like the goal. Everybody would love to be in that position, I think. So that's kind of my dream, and what I'm kind of got a beady eye in the future on. And hopefully, if we can get Dead Eyes back up and running, maybe we can. It'll turn around, because the sales were good on it. The book sold really well. The trade paperback sold really well. We were just stymied by other stuff that I can't talk about, and COVID and long COVID, and it's just been a litany. So,
as a patient fan, it's going to be worth. I know it's going to be worth the wait. You and Jerry.
Well, I hope so. I mean, we had the little short in the Image book just at Christmas there, which had a Sean cover on it again, of course, and that was well received too, it seems. So yeah, I would hope we can get this next arc happening sometime late in this year or something like that. There's just lots of little bits that all need to be maneuvered and figured out and paid for, and until we can get all that done and figured. I mean, it's when you think about drawing comics when you're a kid, or when you're even like when you first break in, you think, well, it's la 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 la, just drawing comics. Oh my God, the amount of background bullshit and just nonsense, and to get things working and running is quite impressive, really. Yeah.
Well,
so
like you said, man, that hashtag comics broke me. I would imagine you could tell quite a tale.
I typed out a whole long thread. So I did one day when I was reading it, and commenting on some other people's stuff. I wrote this long thread, and I just sort of thought, oh God, it's a bit whiny. It's a bit whiny. I mean, I'm not like that, and I'm not saying that when I read other people's things, I just look at myself and think, I work for Marvel and DC. I draw Judge Dredd covers. What have I really got to be pissy about? I'm drawing Carnage for Marvel at the moment. There's other, I'm sure I've not been paid by people over the years, but they've been few and far between. And most of my editors have been terrific, and I've had no bothers with them at all. So I just felt that me sort of saying anything would be just a bit wrong, when there's people actually who are really in the shit due to comics, and it's better to just support them and say that's really sucks, and try to make the industry a better place, than me sort of whining about some, the fact that I, whatever, I couldn't care less. I'm not suffering the way some are suffering. So fuck it. I'm not gonna try and take a piece of that.
No, I hear you, John. The times I do, you go on a rant or woe is me. You want to be selective, because also there. And again, like you said, not to disrespect others who do it, but it's like, God, like, how about keeping things light? How about like, hey, here's a great article that really made me laugh, or here's a great book you should read, or here's a fun movie you should watch. Yeah.
No, I agree with all that. I also agree that it's a great place to air and get these things out there to something like Twitter or Facebook, and it should be out there, and people should be having these conversations about comics and the industry.
Yeah.
And
oh, he froze again. I don't know why we have technical.
How badly people can be treated, and a lot of the time are treated, even well, obviously more, the greats of the industry like Kane and Ditko and Kirby and I mean, it was interesting seeing that Marvel have settled with Don Heck's estate just recently, which was interesting, so that which is great. I mean, I said to my daughter or my wife earlier, I'm sure that at some point Marvel or whomever will settle with us, but it'll be long after I'm dead, because that seems to be the way of it. It's only after you're dead that things get sorted out.
Bill Finger too at DC. And you're right. I mean, this absolutely, it's sad. And also, man, that was so great to hear, because Heck was one of those. With another guy that I haven't heard that kind of settlement with would be Dick Ayers. But like Ayers and Heck are like those two Marvel bullpen guys that were there from the start that I don't think get the due that the Ditkos and Kirbys.
Sure. Well, I sort of understand why people don't groove on Heck as much as, say, Ditko or Kirby, because Heck did not draw I loved his Avengers run, and he drew beautiful women, and he drew fantastic guys in suits, because of course he came from that time of pre-superheroes.
Yeah.
And if you look at all of Heck's stuff back in the 50s and even the early 60s, it's fantastic. His art is beautiful. I mean, the way he can draw wrinkles on a suit is just unbelievable. But then you try to force that Marvel House style onto him, that Kirby style onto somebody like Heck. And, he was a bit at sea, and you could see he hated it, and it was only when Tony Stark was not in his Iron Man suit that he was having a good time. It was when he was drawing Stark with pepper pots or under his arm.
Even the Black Widow, when she was just in a woman's suit and not in a cat suit and everything. So that is so great, John. I'm glad you bring that up, because and he was able to make the transition to superhero stuff. But like, you look at Romita's romance stuff from the 50s and that man. And you're right, Heck is another guy like that. And same with Ayers. I think, because, people don't talk about Marvel Western the way they do, like Jonah Hex or some C characters. But, man, you look at, Two Gun Kid and that other stuff that Dick was doing. No, I have actually, it's funny, mentioning Heck and Ayers. I have a commission that I got from Dick Ayers, and I wanted to draw Iron Man, but that very brief 6-month period where the faceplate had the points.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love those points on the faceplate.
So, that's what he drew for me. It's fantastic. I adore it.
Great.
So, I hear you, man.
I love the points on Iron Man, but not the nose.
Oh, the Tuska notch. I love that. The George.
Oh,
Tuska.
yeah. Oh, well, George Tuska is another artist that I have all the time for. Again, a guy who I think struggled a bit with superheroes to a degree, but you could, but put him on Luke Cage or something like that, and I love Tuska's gapped front tooth. Like, the little gap he always drew in people's front teeth, like everybody was on steroids, they're all just, juicing up, and they all got the gap front.
And yet he did do a lot of superhero work. In fact, he did that. He did that Superman and Justice League American comic strip that I want to say either Kupperberg or Marty Pasco were the scripters on, but it was the world's greatest heroes.
Right.
And it was Justice League and stuff, and it was Tuska drawing it. I wish I had some original Tuska art. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, me too. Did Tuska draw the Champions, the first issues before Byrne took over, or am I wrong? Did Tuska draw some of the Champions?
And that's crazy, John, because literally I have Marvel Unlimited, and I was looking at those first couple issues.
Oh, really?
I believe you're right. I can look up on my pad, but or someone in the audience might be able to confirm it for us.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more audience questions.
Okay.
Mike wanted to know how you ended up doing an issue of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror.
That was easy. Garth and I were at a convention in Germany, I believe. and Bill Morrison was there. And Bill said, "Do you want to write and draw a issue of Treehouse of Horror?" And Garth and I said, "Yes, yes, please." And I mean, the best thing, of course, about doing that is that you get Simpsonized in the back of the comic. They do little Simpson versions of you. And of course, that was back when I was going through my midlife crisis or something, and I had orange hair with little red horns. So I was Simpsonized with the orange hair and the red horns as well. So that's it gave them something to hang the picture on for sure.
Was that kind of like when Ned Flanders is the devil and has his horns and everything?
I was a Prodigy fan back in the day, so that's where the funny hairstyle came from. So, and I had been a punk when I was in my teenage years, but I was always too scared of my mum and dad to actually, because I was a real punk. I was too scared of my mum and dad to do anything stupid to my hair. So at the time, I made up for it later on in life.
You ever bond with Shelley Bond? And of course, Philip is British, but you ever with Shelley, massive Anglophile and massive Britpop and punk music fan.
Sure. Yeah, I love Shelley. She's great. And I mean, I used to know Jamie Hewlett and Phil and all the Deadline crew really well. And I used to go down and stay down at Jamie and Phil's place in Hove or wherever the hell it was. I can't remember. Then those were some crazy times.
I bet, man.
Yeah.
No, I've gotten. I mean, Shelley and I hit it off right away, and I've slowly gotten to know Philip a little bit better. They slay me. They're very, very funny.
Yeah. Shelley is awesome. She knows her shit too. Her book about editing is top notch.
Quite agree. 100%. All right, Paul has a couple questions. Paul wanted to know, and it's the classic boilerpoint question: is there a character or a series from the Big Two that you'd love to draw that you haven't drawn yet?
An immense amount. I think I have a fondness for most of the B or C list characters, as so many do. Really, I mean, I've no interest in particularly ever drawing the Joker or Harley Quinn or anybody like that. And I've drawn Spider-Man and the Hulk, and and I've drawn most of it. So it's guys like Hawkeye or Iron Fist or Blue Beetle or people like that. The more interesting ones who don't necessarily get all the time of day. Those sorts of characters are much more my sort of thing. And of course, with Hawkeye, it would have to be Hawkeye in the heck outfit, the purple with the big mask and everything.
No, not Jeremy Renner with his cute sunglasses. No, I'm with you, man. Which Blue Beetle? Do you mean Ted or do you mean Jaime?
No, original Steve Ditko.
Yeah,
Blue Beetle place. Sure. I'm a huge Charlton Comics fan, so I used to buy any Charlton comic I could find when I was, and they were scarce in Northern Ireland. I've got to tell you. But yeah, just all the Charlton stuff. And my one weakness, I was discussing this with Phil Hester ages ago. It's the one comic that if I ever see it for sale, I buy it, no matter how many of it I've got. Is Charlton Bullseye #4 with Alex Toth's question story in it? If you happen to know that issue,
keep going. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and it's tremendous. It was my first introduction to the question, and I think it's got a Doomsday +1 backup. By Byrne as well. I think it's the wrap up of Doomsday +1, possibly. I think it might be. I think I'm right. The very final episode, and I just loved that question story. It was so great. I think it was one of my earlier introductions to Toth. So so it's got a real fondness for me, and it's so beautifully drawn, obviously. And so anytime I see it, I just buy it. And Phil does exactly the same. He has a pile of them, and I've got a wee
That's
pile.
hilarious. Wow. Honestly, John, I'd love to see you do a question story.
Yes, I would love to do the question. I'd love to draw the question. I mean, he's basically right up my fucking street. So he is, isn't he? It's a no-brainer to put me on the question. So I would like that. It would have to, I'm sure that there's somebody out there who could draw a pretty good. Oh yes, and Hellblazer. I'd like to do more Hellblazer. Constantine. I've done I did that fill-in issue of Swamp Thing with Ram V. Mike Perkins took the break from.
Yeah, that's the last time we talked. Absolutely, man.
Yeah. And I loved drawing Constantine when I was doing it. I love drawing Swamp Thing. God, I'd love to do more Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
Swamp Thing is so much fun to draw. He's so or Man Thing. Any of the muck monsters. Give me, like the Heap or Swamp Thing or Man Thing or the Glob or any of those dudes. I would love to draw those muck monsters. But also, more Constantine would be nice too, because he's just my guy too. I really enjoyed sort of it was a bit cheeky of me, but I sort of reinvented him a little bit when I drew him recently for DC. I did a 10-page story with a guy called Frank Allen, and Frank did this really great little 10-page story. It was in a romance special, DC Valentine's romance special. Frank did this really, really clever and very poignant story with Constantine and somebody else that I'm not going to say because it would spoil the ending of the story. But I sort of reinvented. I made John a bit more modish and a bit more punky looking. I sort of didn't draw his normal trench coat, and I gave him drain pipe trousers and a kind of checkerboard jacket and liner jacket and things, and shaved the sides of his hair and on all this sort of business. And I sort of thought, fuck it, Constantine would do this. He doesn't always look exactly the same. Who the fuck does that? He would change now and then, especially, if he's in LA or wherever the hell he was in that story. He would, a different look for the place. And he's as vain as fuck, Constantine. So, he would. So I did that, and I was worried that the editors would give me grief, and the editors were all like, yeah, it looks great, no problems, fire away. And then I was nervous about the feedback, and everybody seemed to really like this sort of new look. So I'm hoping I get to do a bit more Constantine and do more of his kind of, what I thought was sort of trendy, but of course I'm a 57-year-old man, so it's probably not. But
we're right. I got 12 months on you, John. Other than that, I'm a 58-year-old man. But I'd love to see you draw. Thinking of obscure.
Sure.
Now this is DC Cosmic, but Ultra the Multi-Alien.
Ultra the Multi-Alien. Holy mother! Who the hell is that?
You don't know that character? Oh, John, look him up. Because literally, as he's described, he's almost like a cosmic metamorpho. By the way, another character I'd like to see you draw is Metamorpho.
I do love Metamorpho. I do love Metamorpho. Great character.
It's the same thing where he's this alien hybrid, and his legs don't match, and his torso is different from his arm.
Cool. So he's a bit like Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man as well. Yeah.
Matter Eater Lad.
Yeah. Well, I got to draw Animal, Vegetable.
I don't remember Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. What was that from?
I drew him into Section 8. There was a big shot, a double-page spread of Section 8, just basically beating up all the DC villains, and Garth had the usual suspects, and I was like, I want to draw Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man here. So I had Dog Welder welding a dog to his T-Rex arm or whatever the hell.
Hilarious. Oh my God.
Great fun. Sorry, somebody was thinking about coming in, but I'm still going.
Who was the villain in Animal? Or who was he a villain for? Animal, Vegetable. Who did he fight?
Oh, Doom Patrol. He was a Doom Patrol guy, as far as I recall. I mean, let's face it, he's mad enough to be Doom Patrol, isn't he?
Yeah, no, that's of course that fits very naturally.
Yeah.
That's funny. I think
Actually, I tried out for Doom Patrol back when Andy Helfer was the editor on Doom Patrol, and they were launching it again. And Andy asked me to do sample pages for them. Gave me the script. It was John Arcudi who was writing it. And John Arcudi, yeah, he's a great writer. I love John's stuff.
writer, absolutely.
Yeah, but unfortunately, my work was not good. So the guy who got the job was great. I really liked him, and I can't remember his name. I don't think he's in comics anymore.
Was that when Gerard Way got his own little editorial side of DC? Oming was doing Cave Carson.
No, this was way before that. This was God. Andy Helfer, it was the editor and on the book. And I love Andy because he's a huge Godzilla, not just like me. And the way more than me. I went around to Andy's house one time, or his apartment, and Jesus, he had so much fantastic Godzilla stuff. Like, just I don't know how much it would all be worth, but I mean, it was a lot of money. Anyway,
have you approached doesn't IDW have the Godzilla license right now?
Do they? Probably. I'm just thinking about Godzilla, and another terrible story that I from my youth, when I tried to destroy my career of featuring Godzilla. But no, I'm not going to tell that story because.
All right, fair enough, John.
No way. But I've told it many times to many people, but usually not online, not while being recorded.
Don't worry, John.
It's a bit wild. Anyway, but yeah. I mean, I'd love to draw Godzilla. I really would love to draw Godzilla, but I would also love to A, be paid well for it, and B, get royalties on the sales. And I'm not 100% sure you get either of those with IDW.
I understand.
So, well, I mean, I've worked for IDW, so I know you do not get royalties through IDW. So that is the hard and cold and sad truth of it. And so, yeah, I've done my time in the salt mines doing Mars attacks with them. And I loved my time doing it. But when you see the books coming out and you're not getting anything for it,
yeah, that sucks.
It kind of hurts. Yeah. So yeah, so that's my thing. No, I need my royalties.
No, totally.
Even if it's like 60p to buy a cup of tea, it's the whole principle of the thing.
Are we okay for time, John, or do you want to wrap up soon? Because it is, 9:00 your time. I don't want to.
I presume you want to kick me off.
Not at all. No, John. John. I come from traditional radio, and especially American commercial radio, where I mean, if you kept somebody 12 minutes on the air, first of all, you had a 3-minute commercial in between the segments, and secondly, it was like, all right, hurry off now because we need to do something else. And so, podcasting, it's a pleasure to have long-form conversations that don't have to fit in a 60-minute bubble or whatever. So,
yes. Should we give it another 15 or until it seems to?
That would be lovely. While we're talking, now I want to get back to movie Godzilla because I love the Toho product immensely.
Yes.
And I had a friend who, much like yourself, was so rabid, and maybe you did this, but he would get bootlegs of the Japanese product through the 90s.
Yeah,
like Shin Godzilla and some of these other more modern versions and stuff.
Right.
But I gotta say that even the new ones that just came out recently.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what's missing, but it just doesn't have that kitschy fun. And I would say the same thing about Planet of the Apes as well.
Right.
In terms of those original Fox movies, all 5 of them. I adore them. And while I respect, what's his face with the Batman guy, shame on me. Tim, the director that did the 2000 Apes.
Tim Burton, was it?
Tim Burton, yes. Mark Wahlberg. That was its own thing. And even these newer movies, again, that Matt Reeves did, they just don't have real appeal that I love about that original design that
Sure.
John did with makeup and whoever did the costumes and those original performances and stuff.
Yeah,
So how
yeah.
are you with Godzilla with the newer stuff?
Honestly, I watch so little TV and watch so little anything these days that I haven't watched them.
Okay.
I
How
think
about the Matthew Broderick movie from almost 25 years ago?
the Matthew Broderick one, I wasn't a huge fan, I've got to say. I mean, the Godzilla looks better in the newer ones, the Kong ones. I thought Kong Skull Island was an excellent flick.
Okay.
I really enjoyed Kong Skull Island. The Kong versus Godzilla had a few moments or some moments, but I thought it was pretty patchy altogether. It was bonkers, I suppose. It was, and that's kind of cool. The whole sort of, it was pretty bonkers. Maybe if I watch it again, I think maybe I wasn't in the right frame of mind when I was watching that. But no, I haven't watched any recent of the Godzilla movies at all, and so I can't really comment on them. I mean, I guess maybe nostalgia is a powerful drug, isn't it? And I think it's just those, when you see them in your youth and it's just like, whoa, look at him smash that city. You're just that's the time that it's best for you, and that just carries on through your life. I mean, it's it's impossible to beat that sort of feeling, and I think that's the problem a lot of people have, is that they think that anything new should somehow simulate that feeling that they had when they were kids watching or reading or whatever, and it can't. And it can only do that for the young kids who are reading and watching it then, and that's, I guess, who it's for. So
John, Steve Siegel last week made that point, and I agree, where he was talking about the animated Avengers TV show. There was the first one, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and then they had Avengers Assemble. And Earth's Mightiest Heroes really took a lot of inspiration from the original comic book stories.
Great.
He said and he was involved with the production of it. And
all right.
The adult people that were watching, we loved it because we had read the comics, but the children over their heads, and they're like, yeah, whatever, it's another adventure story. Yeah, but Ultron's in there. Yeah, we don't know who Ultron is, whatever. Back then, prior to the movie. And it's true. You're right. If you try to recapture that vibe that we loved, it's going to be meaningless to the young generation now. It really is.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the same touchstone for them, but at the same time, there's no reason why they can't enjoy it, because Ultron is cool, especially the comic Ultron is extremely cool. And so, if it's that character in a cartoon, I can't see why some young kid wouldn't enjoy it too. But at the same time, that I guess it was, if they were aiming for the adults and throwing too much stuff to the adults, then it's going to just sort of leave the kids a bit cold.
And not hating it, but just indifferent. And then it's just another story. Whereas we remember those comic books, and it's like, oh my God, they're doing it as animation. This is great. Well, all right, you'll forgive me, but I do want a brief nostalgia run, as far as, because we're about the same age, and I've done this with Mark Laming as well. There was so much great British action adventure TV that was coming here to the States.
Okay.
John, Patrick McGowan is like so undervalued in the States. And my God, both Danger Man and The Prisoner were so exciting to me, and just brilliant TV.
Yeah. I never watched either of them.
Did you watch any Avengers or?
Oh yes, I watched the Avengers and the new Avengers. I watched it.
Yeah,
I suppose I watched the tail end of the Avengers. But the new Avengers was really my time with Gareth Hunt and Joanna Lumley and
Lovely, absolutely, Purdy, absolutely, man.
yeah. So I think that was my time. So yes, I watched the Avengers and loved the Avengers. There was a comic called Look In that was published in the UK, and Look In basically did comic strips of TV shows.
Yes.
And I loved Look In, and it had, the Avengers and Tomorrow People, Bionic Man, the Bionic Woman, Man from Atlantis even, and stuff like that in it. Kung Fu with David Carradine.
Yes.
And it was such a, you would watch them on TV, and then you would buy the comic with stories in it as well. And I used to love that so much. And I have tons of the old issues of Look In up in my loft, and I've got original art from Look In on my walls.
Wow.
Yeah. It's cheap to come by over in the UK because nobody in the States cares less about it. So you really it's only UK people that you're in competition with to get the pages. So it's not ridiculously overpriced, the artwork. However, I have run out of wall space, so I can't. There's little point in me, and I can't even afford original art anymore. Really, I mean, especially comic original art. American comic art. It's just forget it. It's too expensive. Too expensive.
That's fantastic. Oh, Paul says Sapphire and Steel were in Lucan. That's
right. That's right. Yep, I loved that show. Didn't understand a word of it, but loved it. Yes. Yeah, and that Sapphire and Steel was drawn by Arthur Ranson, who did a few bits and bobs for the States, but mainly known in the UK for doing work on 2000 AD, Button Man, which is an underrated series.
John, yes.
There you go. Yeah, and Arthur Ranson drew Sapphire and Steel. It's great. Yeah, great artist.
John, I was going to ask you regarding 2000 AD and one of the other features in it. Had you ever done Sinister Dexter?
I did one episode of Sinister Dexter and a cover. I did the interior job first, and it was kind of an odd little sort of standalone story. And I really had no idea who the characters were because I hadn't read 2000 in ages. And in fact, as far as I recall, it was one of those stories where the characters don't even show up until right at the end, where they appear and shoot the guy, and then the story's over, really. And so it was one of those sort of stories. Yeah, I'm very bad. I've never read Sinister Dexter, so I don't know Sinister Dexter.
I just think your style actually would fit doing a trip, a more where they are part of the story. That sounds like how a lot of Will Eisner's stories would focus on the guest of the story, and you wouldn't see the spirit and Inspector Dolan until the end of the story.
He would show up at the end, and sort of often they would just be commenting at the end. One of my favorite ones is the guy who could fly. He discovers he can fly, and then and it's all about him. And then right at the end, it's just the spirit and Dolan just commenting on his passing. So
good stuff, man. You're killing me. And Paul wanted to know: would you ever want to be, both writer and artist on a creator-owned book?
Well, I have tried to write, and I wrote a Dredd story that was a follow-up to a Steve Dillon drawn werewolf Dredd story. I did that for IDW. It was kind of like a what if, and it was and I wrote that, but it was kind of easy because all the elements were put in place by Wagner and Grant and Steve Dillon, and then I just had to take them and mess with them and just have fun. But I'm not a natural writer. I don't have much of a, every time I try to think of something, I think that's been done before and much better than I could ever hope to do it. So I don't feel that I'm in a place to do that. I'd much rather work with somebody who was like a good writer and with a story to tell, and I'll just focus on trying to make the art as good as possible. So yeah, that's basically where I am at the moment. I'm not going to do any writing. I don't think. I'm just you got to know your limitations again, and I still look at my own artwork and think, God, I've got so much room for improvement so I'm just going to keep focusing on the art.
That's great, John, because that's what keeps creative people sharp, is that feeling of, yeah, this is fine, but I know I can do better. And you've been disparaging about your own stuff. I will say, at least, as you said, you want to pair yourself with good writers. Think of all the names that we've mentioned in this conversation, and I'm really glad that you have found them and they have found you. And I mean, wonderful collaborations.
Well, I've been very lucky, I think, over the years to work with some great writers, yeah, and hopefully, I mean, Jerry's tremendous. The first arc of Dead Eyes was just got it all, really. It's humor, it's pathos, it's action, it's violence, it's there's a bit of sentimentality in there, and it jerks your old heartstrings, and political commentary. It's got everything. So but Jerry makes it all work just quite seamlessly. So I'm very happy to be working with Jerry. And again, like I said, with Phil, I've done so many comics with Phil, and so many of them have not been finished. And it's a real one of those things where you sort of want to go back and we did a thing called Progenitor for David Lloyd's Aces Weekly book.
Weekly, yes.
Yeah, and which is a great thing. But unfortunately, I wasn't getting a page rate out of it, so I couldn't continue with it at the time. But I look at Progenitor and think, well, that's a good story, though God knows that new story, that new movie that's got your man out of Star Wars, and he ends up on Earth during dinosaur times. It's coming out just soon, or it is out now, or something. It's like, what's it called? Like AD? I don't know.
Shame on me, John. I'll be honest. It's so funny. I confess I am not a dinosaur person. So
right.
But much like you with Star Trek, it's like I respect it.
Sure.
But it's not my thing. And,
I'm a big dino man. I love my dinosaurs.
And again, man, your art lends to that kind of crazy design of real dinosaurs, but also the license you're able to give with weird aliens, weird people. I mean, no, that's terrific. So
I'll be written on my tombstone.
But John, honestly, I really, and I don't need to know. I'm not a gossip guy or anything, but whatever the complications are with Dead Eyes, I know you guys are going to get through it, and it is so great. And it is, from a reader standpoint, it is worth you guys looking through the shit to get it done.
Yeah, thank you.
All patient, man, because it's great. And I agree with you. I think the right, not that you made it for this purpose, but I really see that as it could be a streaming show, it could be a movie series.
Well,
and
fingers crossed. I mean, it's not that I feel that a film or a TV show validates anything, but God, I could do with some cash.
Well, yeah, and it's just such a great idea, and the way you guys present it, that I think the potential is there. I mean, it's the same with the things that have been made, like obviously, Umbrella Academy or Walking Dead, or even Benson Oming on Powers and other things that TV people or film people are like, hey, let's take a shot with this. Yeah. And it's like, no, I really think, Dead Eyes is another one of those things. Again, forgive me, because a lot of times I want to say Dead Rabbit, but it is Dead Eyes, correct?
Yeah, it's Dead Eyes. Yes, right. We can't mention that other thing.
All right, never mind.
So,
John, go ahead.
Yeah, but thank you. That's very kind, and I would hope that at some point something like that will happen. Jerry's in LA, and I know that he's working on trying to make that happen. So we shall see how it goes.
That's great, man. No, it's funny. Half your collaborators I'm either due to see or talk to in a couple months, and
really?
Jerry and Phil, and hopefully Garth as well.
Okay, so, cool. Yeah. Aces, they're all good guys. They're all much more witty and erudite than I am. So bring them on. I'll step back.
Great seeing you as always, and I really appreciate you making the time tonight to talk.
Oh, pleasure. It's good to be on, John. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to check in. Do we have a date for the Carnage?
Okay. Not that I know of. It'll come out at some point. I will doubtless tweet about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll talk about it. I am having a blast with it. So hopefully it'll be well received, and when it comes out, people will enjoy it.
I have no doubt, John. Absolutely. Great seeing you, man. Be well. Have a good evening. Everybody, thank you for your questions and comments. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little more on Word Balloon Live. I'm talking to Andrew Peepoy about his bringing back Simone and Adrian, a really fun all-ages adventure story. And then I'm recording, we mentioned Sean Phillips. Ed Brubaker and I are talking on Thursday, a pre-recorded conversation. I'll release that on Friday. And then Friday night, Andy Parks is coming on because Extraction 2 is going to premiere on Netflix on Friday, and that's based on Andy and the Russo brothers' great graphic novel, Sea God.
Right, okay. Wow.
The first Extraction is the 7th highest rated Netflix film, which is pretty cool. Way to go, Andy. And so it's Chris Hemsworth as the star, so pretty neat.
Well done, Andy. That's impressive shit.
Absolutely. So all that's coming up this week on Word Balloon Live. Until then, thanks for watching, everybody.